would. I would give my best because I expect your best. There's a chance. Alright. Y'all realize a birthday is not a big deal. But when I explain this, you share it with about however many millions of other people at this time. I mean, it's not like, so.
So we can't say that.
I mean, it's just, okay, you should be celebrated. Your mama should be celebrated. You caused the problem. She went through all that. She's the one on your birthday that should get everything, not, hey, I'm alive, give me things. It's just.
I made it another year.
Yeah,
I like your shirt.
I do too. I like pink. This is the good color pink. I don't like that color pink. I like the pink. I got like 3 shirts that are pink like this. I love pink. I'm way sure of myself. I can't wear pink. Why can't you? Be a man. Suck it up. Let's go. Okay. Where's the thing at? This quiz is supposedly over the founding of our country and the Constitution. So I feel pretty comfortable there. I want to look at the book because I want to make sure it's over what the book says. Whether it's right or wrong, we got to do what the book says because that's what they're probably going to. Okay. I think we talked about this before. The Stamp Act. What was the Stamp Act? What did it do? Okay, it taxed almost everything. You had to buy a stamp for everyday items. Were the colonists mad about paying a tax, or were they mad about something else? They didn't have representation in Parliament. Parliament passed this, but they had no say-so, and as English citizens, when they saw that the Parliament is in charge of taxes, that meant they had a say-so, and they didn't have a say-so because they had no representation. No representation. I'm not going to write that. That's a lot of words. A lot of letters. So that ticked them off. Let's see what else. Was it okay that the colonists pay that tax? What did the war defend? Them. So if you cost them the money, you ought to pay it. You ought to pay it back. I'm a horrible parent. I try to be a good parent. I'm a horrible parent. Did you hear about the idiotic thing Pacer did last Christmas time or Thanksgiving time? We went to get our little pictures. You always do little football pictures. I don't know where they're at. Anyway, by the sign. We was down there, and Coach Cook, young Coach Cook, stopped with his little daughter, and Pacer was pulling out, and for some reason, little Christy thinks our kids should have vehicles. And Colt didn't have a job because he's working for the recruiting office, which was going to lead to a job later on down the road. He wasn't getting paid. And anyway, little Christy thinks the kids should have vehicles. And it does kind of make life easier. My mom and dad died, so we bought Colt a car. And then nobody died, so we didn't have money to buy a Pacer car. But somehow we got rich and we leased a little truck for Colt. So now Pacer has a car. And he backed into Coach Cook's car and scrunched the door. He blamed me because I said, don't use the stupid backup camera. That's dumb. Don't use that. Use the wind mirrors. That's how you tell where you're going. That can't be, you can't even see nothing with that. So he said, you said not to use the camera. I said, no, I said use the mirrors. And this, if you look, here's his car. He did this. Use that mirror. Oh, there's a car there. Anyway. We ended up paying for that because he doesn't have a job because he plays stuff and he's practicing all the time. So, okay, if you're practicing all the time, we can't ask you to work. There's really not many jobs from like 9 to 2 in the morning. So anyway, so we paid for that. Anywho, let's see. I guess the World Wide Web gets to see that one. All right, what other taxes we got? I guess I need glasses. But really, I don't know what the book's gonna say. That's the reason they fought the revolution, was their rights were not being followed. We talked about we did the Boston Massacre the other day, right? It wasn't a massacre. Let's see. There was a lot of political strife because of that. All right, here's what there's also the Sugar Act. Tax sugar, molasses, and other commodities. You know what a commodity is? Cotton is a commodity. Corn is a commodity. Oil is a commodity. It's like a natural resource that people can sell. That's a commodity. Commodity. Let's see. There's the tea tax, which tea was a big deal. The Boston Tea Party was. We mentioned that at all the other day?
Yes.
What was that like? What would that be like us doing? Going to a military base and blowing up some jets. That's how serious the Boston Tea Party was. They threw 342 chests of tea in the harbor. They had hoped to force the British government to rescind the act. Let's see. All right, they did the Declaration of Independence. Could they win that war with England? In reality, could they win? No. What is it that made them able to win?
Spot on the land.
They had the desire, they had that cause they were fighting for. Let's talk about the big guy, punching Titan and Will Christie. Yeah, I don't have a chance against that guy, but if he's tagging Will Christie, I'll pop him in the head there. Articles of Confederation, have we talked about them at all? I hope not. Have we mentioned the Articles? Good. Articles of Confederation. Do you remember what a confederation is? Or what a Confederate government is? In a Confederate government, the country is not important. The state is important. It's a club. Remember that? Where if it's a club, we might show up for the meeting, we might not. The Articles of Confederation was too weak to do the job. It was a car without an engine. Can you get in a wreck in a car without an engine? No. Does it cost you money for gas? No. Fantastic. Can you get anywhere? No. So they did that on purpose. They made this government too weak because they just dealt with the British government, which was too powerful. So they made the Articles of Confederation. There was no executive branch. No president, no prime minister, no king. Why would they not have an executive? What would that look like to them? I even said it a second ago. A king. Now, they didn't want to have a single person in charge of stuff, which our president is not powerful. President's not powerful. The president can't do anything. The president can ask Congress, please, can we do this? And they can say yes or no. So the president's only as powerful as Congress lets them be. They didn't have an executive branch. They had no federal courts. No judicial branch. Why would they not have a court system at the federal level? Can you unfairly be thrown in prison by a court system that doesn't exist? No. So they didn't want to have a court system. And there was no federal taxes. The federal government could not tax. They would beg the states for money. Please, could you send some money? Not this month. Okay, thanks. Those were the big deals. You see how this wasn't any good. This can't get anything done. Also, one vote per state. That means Rhode Island was more important than Massachusetts. What do I mean by that? What's Massachusetts? huge, right? Now, today it's not. Back then, Massachusetts was one of the biggest colonies. Rhode Island's tiny. Massachusetts had more people. Rhode Island had less people. Same amount of votes in Congress. So Rhode Island is more important. And now, if you live in Rhode Island, you're more powerful than people who live in Massachusetts. That kind of makes sense. It took 9 of 13 of the votes to pass anything. That's a big majority. You can't get 9 out of 13 people to agree that the sky's blue. Oh no, it's kind of grayish. Nothing. We could be talking. I could do math in here. We could do some chemistry. You know, this is okay. This is all right. This ain't bad. Unanimous to change the Articles of Confederation. So you see where this thing is not any good. The Articles of Confederation did not work. They decided to do the Constitution. Let's see. Talk about the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. It should. Shays Rebellion, you ever heard of that? I wish I did last year a little bit. Yes. They, I get that and the Whiskey Rebellion mixed up. They actually captured a federal arsenal in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then Congress had to restore order. State government regained control and captured 14 of the rebels. The newly elected Massachusetts legislature granted some of the farmers' demands. That was an example of how the government wasn't strong enough to handle anything. So now we get to, God, they don't do these. They don't talk about anything about the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Or the Great Compromise. I call it the Connecticut Compromise. I wonder if it says who it was. Say who was it? All right. When they were doing representation, they're writing the Constitution, and they had to decide representatives. They had to figure out how are we going to have the people represented in Congress. Virginia gave a plan. This is you can't be cool with this. It is impossible to be cool with this. You can kind of be cool with that, right? But you can't breathe, so I can't see either. Virginia. You know anything about Virginia? What kind of colony was it? Little or big? For back then. The two biggest was Massachusetts and Virginia. So Virginia was a big colony, had a lot of people. Their plan was population based. Like one representative for every 5,000 people. Is that fair? Yeah. That's why I have it up there, HOR or H of R, because that is fair. That is literally fair to have 5,000 people per representative, because then everybody's represented. And if that's true, Virginia has more representatives than Rhode Island. Right? How come? More people. That's fair. New Jersey, who at the time, it's got a lot of people now. At the time it was little. What do you think their plan was? You're a little state. They don't want population based. What do they want? What do they have? Every state got one vote. They wanted to keep that. They wanted every state to be equal. There's an argument for that. I mean, this is the argument. I mean, hands down, this is the argument. Is there an argument for this? It's kind of a weak one, but Wyoming has like 200,000-300,000 people. It's beautiful, but there's no people there. Let's say Texas decided to vote to go take all of Wyoming's minerals and resources, and we're just going to strip mine all of Wyoming. And if Wyoming doesn't have a voice, then we can just do that. Does that kind of make sense? Is it good that every state has a voice? Yeah. So there's kind of an argument here. Well, they started fighting. They literally started punching and cussing and yelling and spitting. I heard something like did we hit somebody with a cane or something? I don't know. That was what you had canes back then. This little guy from Connecticut. Personally, if I think of Connecticut, I don't think of tough guy. They might be tough. You never know. You really never know. If you're talking to somebody and they say, excuse me, I'm very mad at you, and I'm not gonna let that happen. You go, they might, drive you to the ground. You never know. But I always picture this old Weasley guy from Connecticut. And everybody's fighting and grabbing him. He's like, excuse me, and everybody's like, what? He said, why not do both? We don't have to pick. Let's have both. So we have the House of Representatives. And we have the Senate. This is the Connecticut Compromise. Your book calls it the Great Compromise. I like to give Connecticut some props. Plus, you can't spell that. It's hard to. There's all how many T's. There's Connecticut. Bunch of T's. Compromise. And this kind of saved the country. They were going to fight. A bunch of states were going to say we're not there, we're leaving. But this created the House and the Senate, and everything goes through both of them. Everything goes through both. They got to work together. Let's see. That's the Great Compromise. It says a lot more than that is. Oh, all right. This is horrible. This is sad. This is stupid. This fuels my theory that a lot of people wanted to do something about slavery, but didn't know what to do or how to go about it, so they just kept kicking the can down the road. The 3/5 compromise is one of the most illogical and stupid things a group of smart people did. Because the people that did this country, they were smart. They did a lot of good stuff. This was dumb. The House of Representatives is based on the amount of people you got. Some people looked around and said, hey, we got a lot of other people here. We ought to count them so we can have some representation. We got more people in Congress. And somebody said, well, you don't count them as people any other time. Why are you counting them as people? Well, we want it. This helps us now. Let's count them. Yeah, they're actually real people. We'll count them. And they said, so you're going to count them as a whole person when you don't treat them as a person anyway? Well, no. What about half? No, that's not very good. About 3/5. That's better than half a person. Not quite a person, but not better than half a person. And so they said, yeah, let's do that. That sounds like an amazing thing. So for every 5 slaves, they counted as 3 for representation. Stupid. And they looked themselves in the mirror after that, after they did this. That was a 3/5 compromise. So who benefited from that? Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, all the southern states benefited from that. Later on, they did the Missouri Compromise, which kicked the can down the road. They said, okay, we're not going to do away with slave states, but if you got a slave state, you got to have a free state with it.
Teachers, at this time, we need all freshmen with the last name beginning N through S to go to the cafeteria gym. All freshmen with the last name beginning N through S, please go to the cafeteria gym.
All right, it talks about like there's you can look at this. Y'all have the book when you do this. New England Confederation, Albany Plan, the Iroquois Confederation. There were some early things where they tried to kind of get together, but it didn't really work too good. We did the Stamp Act, Continental Congress. Did the colonists, did we do the committees of correspondence? I don't know if they're going to mention this. You said committee of correspondence. Yes. Sam Adams started the committees of correspondence. Y'all know what correspondence is? If you're communicating back and forth, that's correspondence. How did the people of Virginia know what was going on in Boston? Did they know? Somebody had to tell them. So after the intolerable acts, after the Boston Massacre, after all the stuff was going on, quartering troops and all those kind of things, Sam Adams writes to Thomas Jefferson in Virginia. Says, here's what's going on in Boston. And Thomas Jefferson wrote to him, I didn't know that, but here's what's going on in Virginia. And then they wrote to other people in all the little colonies. They started writing to each other and telling each other, here's what's going on. It informed people. What else did it start to do? Started to unite them. Because they were states, okay, colonies, but Virginia and Massachusetts, and they were their own separate little deals. They weren't together. But this thing started to bring them together a little bit. And then they eventually decided to sit down and meet in Philadelphia because it was kind of in the middle. And they had good sandwiches. I ain't never had one. With those little Philadelphia cheese sandwiches, is that what they got? Cheese steak? I ain't never had one. They look good, but I don't know. Oh yeah, Continental Congress. They met together to talk about everything. They met a couple different times. Did they want to fight a war? No, because they're going to lose. Did we do the Packers in here? Can the Packers come to town?
Yeah.
We did that one? Yeah, there's no chance. They didn't want to get hurt. They didn't want to get killed. They want to lose everything. So they wrote a letter to the king. King George was crazy. He literally was crazy. And it was a lot of these king and queens were nuts because of biology. If you say you can only marry these people and they all get married, and you can only marry these people because you're kings and queens, the gene pool is very limited and bad things happen. And that's what happened to them. They got pretty bad off. They wrote a letter to the king and said, hey, look, our rights aren't being followed. We didn't know if you knew this or not. They're not being followed. So if you just fix that. They wanted to be English citizens. They just wanted it to be done right. And the king farted on it and tore it up and threw it away. After that is when they realized nothing's going to change unless we change it. So that's when they decided we got to fight a revolution. If you fight a revolution, the first thing you got to have is an army. So the Second Continental Congress said, we're going to put an army together and we're going to pick George Washington to be the leader of that army. That's the smartest thing he ever did. George Washington was an amazing guy. He was a brilliant military guy. He had fought for the British he was a general in the French and Indian War. And after they won the American Revolution, but they won, by the way, spoiler alert, some people wanted him to be king, and he said no. He turned it down. Most guys would have said, yeah, bring it, I'll be king. Good enough, I could try a little crown on and stuff. And then he could have been president as long as he wanted to, but he stepped down and said, no, let somebody else do it. He was a really good, really amazing human being. So those are the two things they did. They declared independence. I wonder if they're going to have the, bicameral. I think there's still a constitution. You know what bicameral means? Take a wild guess. Two houses. In England, they had a bicameral legislature. They had the House of Lords, House of Commons. In America, they decided, the Great Compromise, to have the House and the Senate. Also, the Constitution has checks and balances. Isn't that pretty cool? Little balances. Right. What does that mean? What does it mean that our government has checks and balances?
Keep each other in line.
They watch each other. They check each other out. This branch has this power over this branch, and this power has this branch. I'll give you an example. President. has the power to veto a bill? Whose power? Who is that over? What power is that over? Veto what? What's the president vetoing? A bill, trying to be a law. Who makes the bill? Congress. So that's a power over the legislative branch. But Congress can override that veto with a 2/3 majority vote. That never happens. Except, I think it's happened twice in my lifetime. Why is this not going to happen? Who's in Congress? What two types of people are in Congress? Democrats and Republicans, right? What type of person is the president? Democrat or Republican. You can't get a bunch of their own, like right now it's Republican. You're not going to get a ton of Republicans to go against their own president. Some of them, but it's hard to get a 2/3 majority here. The last time they did it, did we talk about this? Congress voted to allow, it was 2016, and they voted to allow, make it legal for Americans to sue terrorists. You could sue a terrorist, like say somebody in Iran. If he blows up something and kills one of your family, you can sue him. And Congress passed that almost unanimous. President Obama said, that's stupid. And he was exactly right. And I told my class, that's one, yes, he has some sense. These people in Congress have no sense. How many of y'all think I'm a nut? How many of y'all think I'm crazy? Should a family be able to sue a terrorist in Iran? What's going to happen? Okay, let's say you can. I'm going to sue Ahmed in Tehran. What's going to happen? Are they going to show up in court? No. He said, that's stupid. That's not going to work. So no, and he vetoed it. And they overrode the veto by almost unanimous. Because there's an election here. And they can go home and say, look, I voted to give you the right to sue Ahmed. And then everybody's like, yo, you know. Anyway. But that's
a law now.
what's that? No. Oh, wait. Yeah, I guess you can. I guess they overrode the veto. So now you can sue Ahmed in Iran. Wish he'd show up. Where is he? I want to sue him. You know, if somebody in Iran sues me, I'm not showing up. Do it. Do something about it, Iran. No, you can't. Anyway. President picks judges. At the federal level, the president picks judges. Who has to okay those? Congress. So the president picks judges. Congress, there's things they can do to each other. The judicial branch is the most powerful because you can't undo anything they did. They're also the most mature in history. They're the most mature people in government we have. There you got checks and balances. That's not what we're looking at. Let's see. All right, federalism. Federalism means separation of powers. Not just the three branches. You got that? There are three separate branches that do different jobs and they help control each other, but also you've got the federal government and the state governments who do different jobs. They share the work. Today I paint a field. Today I hope that junior high off season shows up to help put out the little numbers and the pads and stuff, and that way I don't have to do all that. I hope to share the work. If they don't show up, I have the opportunity to do that. But that's what federalism is: separation of powers and shared powers. So anytime you see federalism, that's what they're talking about. This helps with the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Because the Federalists wanted a strong federal government. The Anti-Federalists wanted the states to be stronger. So basically our Constitution says, and we did this a couple weeks ago, the two lists, the Constitution tells the federal government, these are the things you get to do. States, you can't do that. Anything else, states are in control of. There's nothing in the Constitution about getting married. So who gives you your marriage license? State of Texas. You go to whatever county in the state of Texas, you're married. We have ours on the wall. It used to be on the wall across from as you came out of the bathroom. I put it right there like eye level, just so Chrissy never forget. You messed up a long time, but look, you did that. You said so. It's your fault. You don't gripe at me. You did it. So right there. Let's see. Legislative branch, executive branch. Okay, yeah. I like it there. There are expressed powers. There are implied powers. And there are inherent powers. Let's say I had something against you, Mia, and I asked you if you had watched Little Titan for a while. Okay, I want to ruin your life today, so I'm going to have you watch Little Titan. And I tell you, whatever you got to do to take control, you can do. Can you bust his tail? Did I give you, how do you know you can bust his tail? God said, I express to you, you do whatever it takes to get this job done. Expressed powers are written in the Constitution. It literally tells Congress, here's what you can do. Those are expressed. No. I messed up. I'll tell Mia bust his tail if you need to. That's expressed powers. Implied powers would be whatever you need to do. I implied that you could bust his tail. Does that make sense? So there are implied powers in the elastic clause. It's also called the necessary and proper clause. In the Constitution, it tells Congress, anything you got to do these things, you can do. That's called the elastic clause because it stretches the power of government. That's implied. Why can I tell you whether or not you can bust Titan's tail? What gives me that power?
Here's dad.
I'm the dad. Well, you don't have the right to spank a child, okay? Spanking is not the be-all, end-all. It works sometimes. Timeout is not the be-all, end-all. It works sometimes. If you don't want to spank your kid, that's fine. It's great. It works for us at times. Aisha didn't work too good. It works sometimes. He would laugh. And there was a couple times he'd laugh, and Mom, you hear Mom, don't do that. Kapow! Just got. One time, I spanked Little Titan, and Colt was sitting there, and Colt is Mr. Giddy, and he went, ooh, he was bothered by it. But me and Tyler passed. I didn't spank him much. The only reason I spank him is so he's a decent human being and doesn't become a piece of garbage. I want him to be a decent human being. And I'll spank him all the time. Sometimes I talk to him. When he hurts Mom's feelings, my goal is just to make him cry. By just psychologically messing with him. Not by spanking, and I'll go till I get it. Did you really say that to Mom? That's really what you want to say to your mom? Are you sure you want to make her feel like that? Did you know she's crying in there? You made her. Okay. I'm on. Yeah. Pops will show up for a second. There'll be protests outside my house. Okay, judicial review. This actually is not worded in the Constitution, but You got the legislature who writes the laws. And you got the executive who signs the laws and also carries out the laws. That idea makes sense. These two branches do the government stuff. I know it's a little technical. I don't want to get over your head or anything. These two branches do all the government stuff. Could you let them decide if what they are doing follows the Constitution or not? Could I let y'all decide what we're going to learn about today? Y'all are biased. Let's learn nothing today. Let's learn what our desk looks like. You know, you can't let the kids decide what we're going to do in class today. You can't let the coaches decide what penalties are called. You can't let government decide if they're following the Constitution or not. Does that make sense? So the judicial branch are the ones who get the power of judicial review. That means they can look at actions of government, what the government's doing, and say, yes, that's
Teachers, at this time, we need any
or
freshmen
no,
that have not
that's
already
not
had their picture
constitutional.
made to go to the
That's
cafeteria
what judicial
gym.
review is.
All
Anytime
freshmen, if you have
You're up.
not had your picture made, please go to the cafeteria
Case
gym
goes
at
to the
this
Supreme
time.
Court.
Thank you.
What they're deciding is, does this follow the Constitution? If you're accused of murder, they don't look at, did you murder this person? They look at, was this court handled right? Was the Constitution followed? If it was, then your thing is upheld. But if you're found guilty, you're still guilty. If you're not, they don't find you not guilty, they say it wasn't done right, you gotta go back and do it right. They look at something in government, they'll decide whether that follows the Constitution or not. Everybody cool? Judicial review? I bet they ask about that. Okay. The supremacy clause and the ladder of laws. I don't even need for that. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm not even gonna finish it, that's great. The top, everything in our country is gonna answer to what? What document is everything in our country gonna answer to? Or be under? Constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Below that, federal law, state law, and then local. Local can't contradict state law. State can't contradict federal law, and federal law can't contradict the Constitution. That's the supremacy clause. It says this is the law of the land, Constitution, law of the land. Now, don't ask me about McPot. I don't know. Yes, it's against federal law. But if they're not doing it, then if the refs ain't calling holding, whatever, start holding, I don't want high drivers. I think a less inebriated society is better. That's the world I live in. I don't think more, that's why I can't ever vote for legalizing drugs. Because I just don't think that's good for us to be more high and more intoxicated and more, whatever. I just don't think that's, talking about medical stuff, okay, I get you. That's what medicine is drugs. If you're using it right, but people with medical marijuana, say 97% of them are not using them right, so sue me, bring it, I'm not afraid. Go in your room and just spin, let the ceiling spin if you want to get high. All right, yeah, it does. Okay. Federalists and anti-federalists. Last thing. Y'all had this a while back. What did the Federalists want? They wanted a strong, and they were for the Constitution, strong central government. The anti-federalists it's not that they didn't want a central government, they wanted the states to be stronger. they probably agreed there needed to be an engine in the car, but they didn't want an accelerator. Okay? They agreed the government needed to be a little better, but they didn't want an accelerator. Feds were led by Alexander Hamilton. He's on the $10 bill. And he was Washington's second-hand man, Secretary of the Treasury, never was president, got shot in a duel by Aaron Burr. Yeah. That's real. Well, I guess he loses. You know, whether he's right or wrong, he got shot in a duel. Thomas Jefferson led the Anti-Federalists. That's a first-round draft pick. Alexander Hamilton is probably a third-rounder. Man, that's what they got good there. The federal government was the Federalists was mainly Northerners. The Anti-Federalists were mainly Southerners. The North was industrial, manufacturing. And because of that, they want and needed a stronger government to kind of control stuff and control contracts and keep things more steady. In the South, they were agriculture. What's a farmer want? Leave me alone, I got things to do. So it doesn't need a lot of government. Just let me go out and work and do what I need to do. So they did not need a strong central government. What's this the beginning of? Civil War. This is the beginning of the Civil War. That question of who is going to be stronger, who's going to have more say-so, the federal government or the state governments. The states wanted to say, yes, we have slaves, and the federal government wanted to say, no, we're not going to do that. I don't know if they'll go into more depth with that. Anyhow, good enough. Federalist Papers, you remember that. What was the Federalist Papers? What were they what did the Federalists want? Y'all told them the Constitution. They argued why we need the Constitution, the Federalist Papers. Most of them wrote by Madison. Hope that helps. Do the quiz. Don't not do the quiz. I think they're mentioning that second quiz. Can you come and get that after fourth grade? You live out here? Maybe I can cheat.